Psychology of Money book summary? Let's do it. He was the former columnist at the Motely Fool and Wall Street Journal, currently a partner at the Collaborative Fund, an investment firm with a few notable companies you may know about: Lyft, Kickstarter, Beyond Meat. It goes to show he knows a thing or two about money. He's Morgan Housel, the author of The Psychology of Money, Timeless Lessons on Wealth, Greed, and Happiness. And the deep substance of his first book is giving us the ideas to reflect on how we perceive this most important resource and how to maximize it for our own happiness. Here are the top 5 big ideas from The Psychology of Money. Big idea number 1, reflect on your upbringing. Morgan found that our relationship with money stems from a mixture of family upbringing, financial situation, and the economic climate that we were raised in. This especially holds true for a specific time frame as young adults. Let's say you grew up with the stock market crashing and there was a Great Depression. The one where they reported that over 1 in 5 people didn't have a job. Yeah, that Great Depression. Stocks tumbled and went into the dumps. However, you were upper middle class with a great family upbringing and a relatively stable financial situation. During this time, you may feel that saving was a better choice rather than investing your money into stocks or businesses. You'd probably live the most of your life thinking that stocks were a little too risky as well as businesses, so we should probably avoid them and just pocket the cash. But hold on. What if I told you there was this crazy moonshot business around root beer? Would you invest in it? This guy did. That's John Willard Marriott. 2 years before the Depression, he set up an A&W root beer stand. Can you believe there were places dedicated for root beer? John eventually opened up a few other food establishments even during the Great Depression, and he kept on investing during this time. Here's the plot twist. John had 2 sons. One of them, now, guess his name? John Willard Marriott Jr. He grew up to be a brave businessman himself. So much so, he was one of the main reasons his father went from a restaurant food business into the hotel business. Yep, you may have guessed it, the Hotel Marriott empire. Our situational upbringing shape our perceptions and habits. If we take a step back and look at these objectively, we can see why we view money in certain ways. And if we can self-reflect on that, this could help us make better financial decisions moving forward. Big idea number 2, determine your limits. You can't have money without capitalism. Capitalism creates wealth and, for some, unfortunately, envy. Take, for instance, Joe Schmo. When you find out that Joe makes 20% more or just bought a new Tesla, it can make some think, am I making enough? I'm as good as Joe. Comparing ourselves to those around us is a fool's game, and we end up on this hamster wheel of always trying to get more. Fine. We blow our brains out making more than Joe Schmo. We get ourselves not 1, but 2 Teslas. In your face, Joe. But then Joe goes out and buys a yacht. Gah! Being ambitious is great, but we gotta do it for the right reasons. Otherwise, envy will make us do some dangerous things to make even more money. The risk could be illness that cripples people's bank accounts or their relationships or even their own health. The solution? Let's look to eating as the analogy. No 2 people have the exact same diets, lifestyle, capacity when stuffing themselves. We're all incredibly different, and having that self-awareness to understand when you're truly content, not necessarily full, legitimately content, will prevent you from throwing up and getting sick. Understand and know when enough is enough. Big idea number 3, be wealthy, not rich. Oh yeah, Lambos. Nothing peacocks more than these $200,000 machines. While Morgan worked as a valet in his early life, he saw more than his fair share and went on to develop what he would call the man in the car paradox. Here's what it is. Morgan mentions how he longed to get these cars, not so much for the performance, but rather the other things that would come with the car, such as a perceived notion of status, smartness, importance, and perhaps how rich they could be viewed. And notice I said rich and not wealthy. Here's the thing. All we know is how much that person may have spent and doesn't have in their bank account. We don't know if it's a loan or maybe they're just taking out for a test drive. This is how Morgan differentiates the words rich and wealthy. Anyone can show how rich they are through visible, tangible, material items or braggy photos of their experiences. Those are the easy parts. Wealth or being wealthy is something you can't truly visibly show. Wealth in the terms of what you want to do, when you want to do it, and with whom. Its value is giving you options, flexibility, and growth to set yourself up later, which leads to the next big idea. Big idea number 4, plan to fail. The sole reason we all plan is to win. No one ever plans around failing, but I think we can all agree that nothing ever goes according to plan, and that's why we need to do our best to cover all of our bases. Morgan surfaces another great example, but this time from World War II. It was the frigid winter, and the Germans were rolling out these Panzer tanks, the most technologically sophisticated machines that were supposed to change the tide of war against the Allies. On one of those important fronts, they strategically placed over 100 tanks to seize the position. However, when it came time for the big show, fewer than 20 were operable. The others were left stranded because, get this, of mice eating away the insulation that was covering the electrical system. Unreal. There's no way the engineers could have predicted this and created an anti-mouse repellent on the electrical system. But there was no backup for the tanks. It was all them, and it became the Germans' single point of failure on that front. We may not be fighting a war, but we're finding a way to live. To do this to the fullest, we can't let any of our investments become our own single point of failure. This is why savings is so important. It's because it helps de-risk misfortunes that will inevitably come our way. So if you have those savings, it will allow you to live and see another day. Morgan simplifies savings by labeling it as the delta between basic needs and your ego, which is what you really want to show off. And the more savings you have, the more power you have in the what, the who, the where, the when, and the more you can diversify your risk. Say you weren't happy with your soul-sucking job you're in. With a healthy amount of savings, you wouldn't have to feel pressured to stay in it. You could quit and find a more suitable fit that would bring you even more money, or at least fulfillment. I'm a pretty simple-minded guy, so let's keep this super basic. Determine the necessities you need to live, like food, shelter. And once you do that, increase your savings by decreasing your ego. Avoid spending on frivolous things. Live a little more with humility. Last big idea, number 5, make time your ally. Far too often, we want things either now or just fast. When it comes to growing our wealth, Morgan says we have to make best friends with someone who starts with a T. I mean, it could be me, but rather, he's talking about time. As mentioned, you will inevitably hit some rough patches, but experience also some good fortunes along the way. The longer we can wait for our investments and money to grow, the better we can ride the ups and downs for sufficient returns. I'm a chart nerd here, so take a look at this data from Berkshire Hathaway. It's the S&P 500 annual rate of return from 2010 to 2019. As you can see, if we played the short game by year, our investments would be riding a crazy roller coaster. But if we held out for the last 10, we would be up 14%. You can't time the market. If you can, give me a call. Looking at our own wealth from a very long-term horizon can give us a greater perspective and a bigger picture of our own happiness. Maybe this also lends itself to the quote, "Time heals all wounds." And before we get into that recap, it would mean so much and it would make my absolute day if you could smash that like button. And if you haven't already, hit the subscribe as well as checking off that notification bell. So many thanks. Now for the recap. Big idea number 1, reflect on your upbringing. Big idea number 2, determine your limits. Big idea number 3, be wealthy, not rich. Big idea number 4, plan to fail. And last but not least, big idea number 5, make time your ally. My name is Truman, and this has been a brief book club book summary of The Psychology of Money. If you read this gem, what mind money insights can you share with the community right here? Leave them in the comment section below. And if you haven't had a chance to read The Psychology of Money, what ideas did you want the community to dive into? You guessed it, leave it in the comment section below. Thank you so much once again for spending time with us and this book summary. Apart from that, I'll see you in the next video.